Hello, this is Hiljon101010 from the Computer Clan on thecomputerclan.com, and I'd like to go over a recent posting on Microsoft's website. I might miss some things just due to the timing. I will have some information scroll across the bottom there, so you can watch the video twice. You can do one with me talking and one by reading the information on the bottom. I'll try to get in as much as possible, and let's not take this the wrong way or anything. I'm just saying how this can kind of be bullshit. So let's get right into this. This is the posting. Deciding between a PC and a Mac. Alrighty then, let's get started. Macs might spoil your fun. Okay, now, just before I even really continue, all of you PC fanboys who say Apple makes fun of Microsoft too much, well, look who's doing it now, because they're probably tired of sucking defeat for so long. Okay, now I'm going to admit that there are a few things that Microsoft does call in this that obviously defeat the Macintosh, but overall, the Mac comes out on top, at least in my opinion, hopefully in some of yours. We'll see. Alright, so Macs might spoil your fun. There are some things you simply can't do out of the box with a Mac, like watch, pause, rewind, and record TV like a DVR. That is true. You cannot do that right out of the box. But Windows has support for that. But of course, that's something in Media Center. Like, for instance, in Vista, you had to purchase a higher-end version, and it's usually a lot more money. And if you had to upgrade to, like, the business version, like if you started a small business or something, that got rid of that. So if you upgraded to business just to use a small business for Vista, you got rid of Media Center, and it's a good thing Microsoft finally changed that for Windows 7, but they still have so many stupid versions. Plus, the 32-bit, 64-bit separate versions too, which cause compatibility issues, and we all know that. But we'll get into that later. So that's one thing that does beat the Mac. Game on! Most of the world's most popular computer games aren't available for Macs, and Macs can't connect to an Xbox 360. Well, guess what? If I make a program that's for Mac OS X, people complain that it doesn't run on Windows. Is that Microsoft's fault? No. It's my fault because I chose to not make a Windows version, or maybe I can't make a Windows version. So it's mainly the developer's fault. But there are lots of great games, and with Steam coming out, there's even more games coming to the Mac, and a lot of great games that already have come, like Portal, TF2, etc. Steam is a great platform, and it's available on the Mac. There's also Torque, Unity, etc. Plus, if you have a Windows-only game, you can run it straight up, because you can install Windows straight up on a Mac. You can run it on a virtual machine, which virtual machines run very well in Mac OS X, especially VMware Fusion, because it really takes advantage of Grand Central, which is Mac OS X's multi-core technology and 64-bit, and OpenCL. And, of course, OpenGL runs graphical-intensive games in Mac OS X better than DX10 in most cases, or DX11, most recent version. But if you need DX11, guess what? A virtual machine can run it just fine. Because VMware Fusion 3.1 has had 5 times better graphical performance, and it's true. They're not just exaggerating that. I've really seen it. So if you need a Windows program to run, or a Windows game in this case, you can run it on a Mac. Although there are a lot of Mac versions, and if there isn't a Mac version and you want to bitch about it, well, guess what? It's the developer's fault for not making one, or not getting it out on time. So, alright, so I'll go to simplicity. Oh gosh, this is going to be wonderful. I'm not going to get into every single thing that I've said before, because that would just take absolutely too long. I have plenty of videos on this stuff. The computer that's easiest to use is typically the one you already know how to use. That's kind of a BS statement, because what if you use a Mac for, let's say, 10 years, and the next year you want to buy a new computer, but you want to maybe switch to Windows, but you read this and it says the computer that's easiest to use is typically the one you already know how to use. And they'll say, oh, I've been using a Mac for 10 years. I already know how to use it. Well, Microsoft's telling me I should probably stick with the Mac then. So what they're saying here is really stupid. They say, well, some say Macs are easy, which they really are. I've gotten so many people to switch to Mac OS X, and they said it was the easiest thing they've ever done. I've gotten a lot of people to switch, and they haven't had many problems at all. Hardly any. Same here. I've never had any problems where I have to get some guy to come over to the house and fix the computer and all that crap. That's happened so many times on our PCs, never once on our Mac. Or any of our Macs. I've never had a Mac break on me. Never a hard drive failure, never had to take it into an Apple store, it never happens. PCs, happen a lot. Alright, so PCs running Windows 7 look and work more like the computers you're familiar with. Now, that is if you're familiar with the PC. If you're familiar with a Mac and you switch to Windows 7, you're going to be like, what the hell is this crap? Now, of course, there's going to be a learning curve when you switch to any operating system. But overall, the Mac has been the easiest to switch to. That would explain why its market share is growing. It's going upwards. And more than 50% of the people that come to Apple stores are new to the Mac because they're ready to learn. Of course, there's a learning curve, but it's very easy. Like I said, I've gotten people to switch single-handedly. And of course, Apple's market share is growing because they're getting a lot of people to switch to the Mac because it's just so much easier. You don't have to mess with drivers. You don't have to mess with all that compatibility. It just works out of the box. Anytime I report a problem that I've had with Windows or on a PC fanboys just say, did you configure the drivers properly? Did you defrag the hard drive? I'm like, I don't have to do any of that stuff in Mac OS X. I open my Mac, I can install Steam, I can play my games, I can do my video editing, 3D modeling, all that stuff without having to configure a single driver. It just works. So as much as they say this works smoothly and all that good stuff, yes it does, because I've used Windows 7 and it's pretty good. But this first sentence here is a BS statement, and Mac OS X overall is just easier. And let's get into this one, touch and go. Unlike Macs, many PCs running Windows 7 support touch. Well, Microsoft, that is wrong, because Macs do support touch, because you can get a touchscreen and use it on a Mac. It's just the hardware. There's nothing really special about the software, even when Microsoft claims to do that they have the buttons a little bit bigger in the jump list, they have 25% more touch space or whatever. It's still really not that good. If you have big fingers or something, it's going to be pretty hard to navigate on that because it's not like a truly dedicated tablet or touchscreen operating system such as iOS or Android. Those work a lot better for touchscreens. In Windows 7, for instance, it's much more difficult. I've used the HP TouchMart and stuff, and it was crap when I used it. It was just totally messed up. I moved my finger, the arrow was off sync, it did not track properly. It was hard to close Windows because the little close button is so dang small. Scrolling is a mess because the scroll bar is so small, and when I scroll, it's not even that smooth. They don't even have inertia scrolling like Apple does in their iOS. So the Mac does have touchscreen support. There are companies that can give you touchscreens, convert your computer to a touchscreen, and it'll work fine. But it's not as good, even with Mac OS X, I'm saying it's not as good as iOS. Same thing with Windows. They say they have better support for it, but I saw the demos of Windows 7, and it didn't run so well at all. It was very glitchy, and it's not much different, and it's not really optimized for a touchscreen. Macs don't like to work well at work or at school. Well, that doesn't explain why they're the #1 most recommended school computer in the US. It's the best in colleges because it just works. Students like that better. Video universities like Full Sail, for instance, they're all Mac based because the Mac is the best for the video and that stuff. So it is the best computer in the education industry. It is definitely #1 in the US. It's been that way for quite a long time, and it is the most purchased computer out of any computer manufacturer among college students. Alright, let's see. Sharing documents and spreadsheets. Yeah, this is kind of a bullshit statement too because Microsoft Office for Windows typically runs Microsoft Office documents. But iWork, Apple's productivity/office suite, runs iWork documents and the Microsoft Office documents. Microsoft Office for Windows does not read the iWork documents, but iWork reads iWork and Microsoft Office. So it has more compatibility, and again, that's the Apple one, and you can export as Word and all those other kind of formats. Giving presentations, you'll have to buy a separate hardware dongle to plug your Mac into a standard VGA projector. Yeah, but that's a standard VGA projector. VGA projectors. Are you kidding me? VGA has been around for so long, the graphic quality is absolutely horrible compared to a mini display port. I have the connector so I can take this little outlet or port on my MacBook Pro and hook it up to any display. But if I just plug it in natively to the mini display port with a monitor that supports that, the graphic performance is way better, and it's way easier to plug in. You don't have to deal with screws, you don't have to deal with the stupid pins being bent or any of that kind of stuff. It just plugs in and it works, and it has much better graphical performance than a standard VGA projector, because VGA has been around for a long time, and it's ancient, and it sucks. Protecting your drives. Now this is another one because Windows can encrypt the whole hard drive, but that's Windows 7 Ultimate. Apparently they're saying no other version does it, but Mac OS X, which is $29, the Snow Leopard one, does encryption on your home directory. And now they say you can do your entire hard drive in Windows and only the home directory on Mac, but guess what? Your most important files are in your home directory. That's why they only encrypt that specific area. So, if you do forget your password or anything like that, the system is still usable. It's just you can't get into that one account because it's encrypted. If you encrypt your entire hard drive and you forget the password, you're screwed. But of course, Windows gives you that option, but it only comes in the most expensive version. Surprise, surprise. Alright, sharing. Macs don't like to share. Yeah, screw you, Microsoft. At least half the fun of a computer is sharing. Okay. In the Finder, all the shared devices are right there in the sidebar. All the computers in my home I can get to in 5 seconds. I can control their screen with permission. I can log into them. I can access their files on all their hard drives and plugged in hard drives right in the Finder. It's all in the sidebar. I can get to it in a couple clicks. And if I have a home server, which I do, which I use for wireless backups and public storage, I can get into that just by clicking it in the sidebar and typing in the password. And there I have access to the backups and the public folder. And it's just simple. It's right in the sidebar. You don't have to configure anything. You don't have to set anything else up. When I got that time capsule, I plugged it in, opened up Airport Utility, gave it the name and password. I was done. It was that simple. I was doing wireless backups right away and sharing files on a public folder. Alright, Macs might not like your PC stuff. Plain and simple, if you're a PC user, lots of your favorite stuff just might not work on a Mac. Well, guess what? Boot Camp is there to run Windows natively. You can run basically any OS because you just use the partitioner. You can partition your hard drive. You can use a virtual machine. So if you're transitioning to Mac, you can still use your Windows programs because the Mac can run Mac OS X, Windows, and Linux, whereas a PC really only runs Windows and Linux. And a Hackintosh is a completely different topic. So yeah, that's one thing. They obviously run more software because they support all the operating systems. And programs you already know, if there's a Mac version, you will have to purchase it again. Yes, that's true, but if you don't want to, you can still run the Windows version natively, straight up or in a virtual machine. And if they say you'd have to learn how to use it on a Mac, but if the programmer is good enough with consistency, they can keep a program to look the same on Windows as it does on a Mac. For instance, I use Safari on Mac all the time. I install that on Windows. It's virtually the same because Apple kept it so consistent. But a program like Skype, the Windows version looks nothing like the Mac version. But then again, that's a free program that's not by Apple or Microsoft, and it's very buggy to begin with. So they need to improve their stuff. But as you can see, there usually is a Mac or Windows and even Linux version of a lot of things. And if it's Windows only, you have virtual machines, you can boot straight up, etc. It has compatibility. Choice, of course, this is a big one. Now, hardware-wise, PCs do have more options, yes. But the problem with that is the drivers. Like I mentioned earlier, the PC fanboys always say configure your drivers right. Apple knows what they're doing. If you may think it's a stupid idea, it's really not because Apple knows what they're doing. Keeping the consistency in the hardware, making the hardware and the software makes it run better. That's what Apple does. And let's take a look at this bottom one here. With PCs running Windows 7, you can play videos and all that stuff stored on your hard drive, which you can do with a Mac as well, while you're on the go, for free. Apple charges $99 a year for its online service. Okay, see, I really don't understand this part because you can look at your stuff on the go if it's still on your hard drive. Now, Apple charges $99 for its online service, which I don't know what that has to do with this, but I believe they're talking about MobileMe. It's because that's syncing. It's online backups. It's 20 gigabytes of online storage. It's web hosting. It's email. It's calendars, contacts, etc. It's a lot of great stuff. It's way more than what they're talking about here, even though this doesn't make much sense because it says you can play the videos stored on your home PC while you're on the go. Now, I think they're saying you can connect to it or watch it. I believe they're saying something like that. You can do that with a VNC connection or back to my Mac, whatever you want to use. You don't have to use MobileMe just to do that one simple thing. There's lots of other solutions that work with Mac, Windows, and Linux. So that's my little blib-blab about this, whatever. I think this is pretty stupid. I mean, if you say Apple makes fun of Microsoft, just look at this crap. So that's all I have to say. See ya.